afternoon, and thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is December 7th, and it is 4:05 p.m. Sorry for the delay to get started. We'll go ahead and get started this afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Before we get started with the agenda, I do just want to ask for a quick moment of prayer, reflection, and silence for the victims and their families that we lost over the weekend of our KCKPS family. But not only them, for all the victims of any type of gun violence that we see across the country, for those victims and families in the Oxford community that continue to suffer. And anytime we lose a life in this community or in any, it is senseless and something that we all need to work together on to put an end to. So I'll ask for a quick moment of prayer and reflection for those victims and their families. Thank you. Before we do our roll call, I will read our board norms and protocols as we do at every board meeting. And as a board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So with that, again, good afternoon to all of my board colleagues, Dr. Stubblefield, to all of our staff, all of our guests that are with us in person today, and to all of you who are viewing at home, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Ms. Downing, would you please do a roll call?
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Dr. Yeager. Yolanda Clark.
Thank you, Ms. Downing. I would actually entertain a motion to amend today's regular agenda to include in the consent agenda the approval of the agreement between with Mr. Brady, and then to also remove executive session B that is on the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? If not, Ms. Downing?
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. So I would now entertain a motion to approve today's amended agenda.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Not, Ms. Downing, roll call, please.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys.
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Great, thank you.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we will jump right into our agenda, and first on our agenda is our awards and recognitions, and so I'll ask Mr. Stephen Linkus, Chief of Staff, to please come forward as we prepare to recognize our students of the month. Mr. Linkus.
Good afternoon, Board President Lopez, Vice President Clark, fellow members of the board. As you see, because we didn't celebrate Student of the Month last month, we are overrun in the room, but we're overrun with positivity, so we're very happy to see our staff, our families, and most importantly, the students we're honoring on behalf of our district. So this will take a few minutes longer than normal, but it's a festive season, and we'll have a celebratory mood as we do this. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. We had an opportunity to visit some schools and actually get pictures with our Students of the Month, along with members of the committee that is now voting, looking at the nominations and doing so. So our first winner is Sofia Aguirre She is from Earl Watson Jr. ECE and was nominated by Angie Bell. So if I can have you come forward, Sophia, with your family and any staff members who are here. We also have Principal Sowers, so if you guys want to come on up.
I nominated Sophia. She is just a drop of sunshine in my classroom. She's always kind, always comes in with a smile. Worked so hard this quarter to meet all of her goals, and I'm so proud of her hard work and love having her in the classroom. Congratulations.
And while we're getting ready for the picture, I'd also like to thank Principal Sowers. He was able to get here this afternoon, so thank you.
Smile.
Congratulations, Sophia, and thank you for your mother coming to celebrate with us, and also your little brother who decided to sleep through the ceremony. So glad to have him as well. Our next winner is from Grant Elementary, and it is Dominic Trujillo Baron. He's a second grader there, and he was nominated by Principal Heather Calvert. So if I could please have you come forward.
Good afternoon. Dominic was actually nominated by 2 different staff members at Grant, which is incredible. So not only was he nominated by his classroom teacher for showing all of our behavior expectations, our 4 main ones, he also was nominated by one of our intervention teachers who was walking down the hall one day and actually saw Dominic in the bathroom kind of cleaning up and tidying up, and he hadn't even been asked to do so. And when she asked him about it, he said, well, I do this every day just to be helpful. And so I also brought our head custodian, Mr. Harris, to help recognize Dominic today just for his willingness to always go above and beyond. So thank you, Dominic, for all of your hard work.
If Dominic's parents are here, if you want to step forward, you can get some pictures as well. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Dominic. And thank you, Mom, for showing up and celebrating with us this award. Our next winner is a 4th grader from John Fisk Elementary, and it's Christian Aldaña. And the nominee was by Mr. Joe Graham, Dr. Joe Graham, the principal. So Dr. Graham, Christian, if you guys would like to come on up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Joe Graham. I'm the principal at John Fisk, and I have the pleasure of introducing you guys to Christian. He came to us 2 years from Guatemala as a newcomer, and he dealt with a lot of obstacles and a lot of fear. And what we've, with the help of Ms. Mendez and Ms. Mitchelson and another teacher, Ms. Ramirez, we've been able to make some connections with Christian, and he's a lot more comfortable in our building. And we've actually tapped into some pretty awesome academic gains for him. And so we just wanted to acknowledge his growth and his comfort level improving drastically. It's been amazing. So, guys, this is Christian, and he's a pretty amazing kid.
Quiero felicitar al papá que está aquí con él esta noche. Señor, muchas gracias por acompañarnos y estar aquí para la presentación. We also want to thank Christian's dad, who was able to come out this evening and celebrate with us, and we're very happy he's able to be here. Our next winner is from Argentine Middle School. And our winner is a sixth grader. It's E. Close. And he was nominated by teacher Sarah Esther. So if you could please come on up.
Hey, everybody, this is Eklo, and, oh, can you hear me? There we go. And he just exemplifies quiet excellence. Every day, Eklo shows up to my world history sixth grade class, and he is just fantastic. He does all the work at the highest level. He helps other students without being asked. He is just awesome in every way. So I just wanted to nominate him.
Might as well stay there, I know.
Our next winner is from Gloria Willis Middle School, and she's an eighth grader. It's Kennedy Anderson. And I know Miss Samia Guess is here as nominator, and I will have them come up.
Hello, my name is India Bennett. I am one of Kennedy's teachers. I'm her eighth grade social studies teacher. Come on up. This is a special young lady. She was nominated by a few of us at Gloria Willis. One of her other teachers, Mr. Schreiner, was not able to be with us tonight, but I am proud to nominate her as one of the students of the month because she is an excellent worker. And I like it because she still acts like an eighth grade girl. So we appreciate you, Kennedy. Thank you so much for all you do.
Congratulations, and thank you, family, for showing up and supporting her with us. Our next nominee is from J.C. Harmon High School. The young lady's a 10th grader, Karina Munoz, and she was nominated by Courtney Turner. So, Karina, if you would like to come up front, please. We also have Principal Carter, and we have a family member, if you want to come up as well.
All right, I nominated Karina because it was
very beginning of the year, she's just a little ray of sunshine and was one of the kindest students right off the bat. And I noticed what good relationships she has with multiple staff members, the way she interacts with people in the halls, the way she interacts with people, other students, as well as she's always super willing to do the classwork and get stuff done, and eager to get the stuff done in the class too. Cool.
Dr. Wynn. Dr. Wynn.
And thank you, Ms. Carter, who's here also as the principal from Harmon. Thank you for being here as well.
Wait, you got one more. You got one more. Oh, okay. Okay.
Thank you very much. And our last winner for this month is from Sumner Academy, and it's Alejandra Zacapala Martinez, and she was nominated by Jill Shannon, who's a teacher. So Alejandra, if you and any family members would like to come up. And Principal Malone is here with her this evening.
Good evening, Board. Ms. Shannon had a conflict and couldn't be here, but Alejandra is an amazing student, nominated by her IB English teacher, which tells you the rigors of that class, and being a star student in a class like that tells you just the amazing caliber of student we have here. I also gauge students on if they visit my office, and she never visits my office, which is a good thing. So congratulations to Alejandra and her family.
También queremos felicitar a los padres por estar aquí con nosotros esa noche para acompañarnos. Muchas gracias por estar aquí. Thank you to our parents as well, and we're very happy you're able to have this time with us. And as we wrap this up, I'd like to thank the Board of Education for giving me this opportunity to celebrate our students. But we'd also like to thank Elevate Restaurant and Kaleidoscope. They donated food coupons to our students. They are two businesses that have done that. We have other businesses we will be announcing as well as we go through the next months. We're excited to partner with different restaurants in our community. We're glad to see they're giving back. And we know the value that our community has with education and how they value the partnership with our schools. So thank you to them. We'll be shouting out some other people in the next couple months, and looking forward to next month when we'll shout out some more students. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Linkos, and again, congratulations to all of our students of the month and your family. We're so proud of you and everything that you're accomplishing in this school year. So congratulations to you all and to the staff of all those schools who support you. And as we continue with our agenda, we will continue our celebrations and recognition. We will celebrate our employees of the month as well. So I'll ask Ms. Jody Mitchell to please come forward as we prepare to celebrate our employees.
Good evening, Board. Good evening, Board President and Dr. Stubblefield. I am here to announce the employees of the month. And I thought really quickly, one thing, if you haven't ever seen the actual awards, anyone online or the board, we give the employee a very beautiful glass plaque that has their name on it, as well as the month of that they're receiving Employee of the Month. So just wanted to show that as well. We actually have two this evening. One is able to join us, and one was not able. So I will speak about one of our occupational therapists who works for our special education cooperative. Her name is Gail Green. And she was nominated by Andrea Sanders, who also works in the building with her. And she says, in short, that she has been serving with the district for a number of years. She not only demonstrates professionalism and kindness, but she's also one that when her coworker recently was out on leave, she actually picked up her caseload without any hesitation or request by others. She just decided she would just pick it up and make sure it got done. She's also been a mentor to several of the other employees in the schools and throughout the cooperative, able to answer questions and just having a really good time at work and with her fellow coworkers. So we are happy to give this to Gail. I will make sure she gets this tomorrow. And if you could just give her a round of applause. Our second employee of the month, I have Mr. Wayne Carell, who is our director of, he's very excited. Not embarrassed at all. He is our director of purchasing, and I have Tracy Kaiser here to read his nomination.
Good evening. I am honored to read the nomination for Wayne. This was nominated by Edwin Birch, and so I'm reading this on his behalf. Edwin states, "Every organization relies on adequate staff to drive towards success. To achieve the mission and organizational goal of being successful takes teamwork. Now, we hear the term teamwork often in our daily lives, but let's be honest. Some of us think of ourselves as team players, right? And that's okay. However, the person who's being nominated for Employee of the Month sets the bar and exemplifies what teamwork and being a team player is all about. Whenever you ask this person for assistance or have a question, he is always ready to help and gets back to you promptly. He doesn't mind getting his hands dirty if that's what the job calls for. When you think about overseeing all the details related to ensuring a competitive bidding process takes place, reviewing legal documents, and the various terms and conditions intertwined with the purchasing of goods, it can be very tedious and challenging work at times. But no matter the challenges, Wayne Carell, the Director of Purchasing, makes our job a little easier every day. He's been employed with KCKPS for 10 years. He began as the Assistant Director of Purchasing and then moved up to his current position as Director of Purchasing. As part of his nomination, I was asked to provide a quote, and I said, "Wayne continuously goes above and beyond to support the district's needs every single day. He's an asset to schools, departments, and staff. Wayne is diligent in finding the best pricing for the district while always making purchases timely. I am thankful to have this rock star in our district." Thank you.
Well, yeah, thank you all. It's just the recognition is really a product of everybody I work with. All my staff in the purchasing department, Mindy Danbury, Dee Gooden, Shelley Thompson, I got it right this time, and let's see, Lisa Fisher, Dee Gooden, Brian Hernandez, and all the guys in the print shop, Ron Simmons, Rick Leslie and Bang Tao, and Tracy. I have great bosses too, and Ralph as well. So it's easy. You all inspire me every day, and I try hard for you. A picture. I got it.
Great.
Anybody knows me knows that this is so embarrassing.
Congratulations.
All right, thank you. And again, congratulations to Gail Green and to Wayne Carell for the honors tonight. And thank you to those who nominated them and recognize the good things that they're doing in our district. So thank you to all. And again, just a shout out and thank you to all of our staff that continue to work so hard for our district and our community and our students. So thank you. We'll continue with our agenda. Next on the agenda, just to acknowledge, we do not have anyone signed up for community comment today, but a reminder, if anybody would like to sign up for comment, you are more than welcome to sign up and give your comment either in person or via Zoom. Just please contact our board clerk or our deputy clerk, and we can get you on the agenda for the next meeting. With that, I will pass it on to Dr. Stubblefield for your communications, our superintendent of schools.
Good evening. I have a couple of things, announcement. First, I want to start with recognizing Bertram Carruthers Elementary School. They're being recognized nationally by the National Association of ESEA State Program Administrators for exceptional student achievement in 2021. This organization publicly recognized qualifying federal funded schools across the nation for outstanding academic achievements of all students, including students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. The Kansas State Department of Education designated Bertram Carruthers Elementary as a national ESEA distinguished school for closing the achievement gap in 2 consecutive years. Join us in congratulating Principal Molly Strusso, her staff, and the students at Bertram Carruthers Elementary School for being named a National ESEA Distinguished School for the 2021 school year. The district is also proud to officially kick off a new health and wellness initiative with GEHA and 15 and the Mahomes Foundation. The partnership was launched during a special event held at Bertram Carruthers Elementary School this past Friday. The program was created to educate and empower 3,500 students at 7 elementary schools in Kansas City, Kansas. This program primarily focuses on the northeast corridor of Kansas City, Kansas. The initiative aims to provide a low-cost, high-visibility educational wellness curriculum for elementary schools to implement. This program is intended to be hands-on and integrate local health and dental nonprofit partners to promote access and continuity of care for both students and their families. I want to thank Gene Willis from GEHA, Marquez Fitch with the Mahomes Foundation, and Patrick Saley with Vibrant Health. Also, our own Lisa Garcia Stewart and her staff for developing this partnership. Congratulations to Noble Prentice Elementary School and Eisenhower Middle School custodial staff for being selected as the building of the month. These schools were selected for their dedication to keeping the building clean and safe for all those who enter. KCKPS USD 500 is proud to be recognized by the Kansas State Board of Education and the Kansas State Department of Education for exceptional work we are collectively doing to implement systems that lead to positive academic outcomes. KCKPS is among several districts throughout the state to earn the 2021 Star Recognition Award Program honor. The district was recognized by the Commissioner's Award with honors. Kansas City, Kansas Public School is partnering with Wyandotte County Health Department and the Kansas City Royals to host a vaccination event for children ages 5 to 11. The first COVID-19 vaccination event for KCKPS that focuses on our community's youth will take place on Friday, December 17th from noon to 2 p.m. at Grant Elementary School. Those youth receiving the vaccine will get a free meal on site and be able to pick up other great giveaways. The Wyandotte County Health Department will be on to administer the Pfizer vaccine for youth ages 5 to 11 only. A parent and guardian must be present at the event. No vaccines, again, for those over 11 during this event, or no booster shots. If you need those, you can visit the Wyandotte County Health Department to see the times to receive that at the various locations. And finally, my condolences go out to the families who lost, our students and staff who lost family members to gun violence this past week. I want to thank our district police department and support provided by the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department in response to the social media threats that occurred regarding our schools this week as well. The safety and health of our students and staff is our top priority, and we will not take any threats to our school campuses lightly. Student Services initiated the crisis response team to address any concern or questions to students who may have heard about the incident or been directly impacted by the incidents and the threats. We will continue to remain vigilant in our efforts to find out the legitimacy of this post and its source. I want to thank everyone and those individuals who share this information with us to ensure we were made aware of the threat. Your support and information is appreciated and as important to us in helping us to maintain a safe learning environment for all of our students.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Just a few comments from me as well. I'll just pick up from where Dr. Stubblefield just paused. I also, again, want to state on behalf of the Board of Education in our district, as Dr. Stubblefield mentioned, we want to extend our deepest condolences to those families of the victims that we lost over the weekend. And we will continue to do all that we can to keep our students and our staff safe and healthy. The recent violence that's resulted in death of current and former students is unacceptable, and the threats of violence against any individual or school is wrong and unacceptable, and we must put an end to the violence in our community. We can't do that alone. I know we've said that time and time again here at this very board, in this very boardroom, that we need each of us and all of you that are watching as a community to continue to come together to love and support all of our students. Violence is never the answer, and our administration and police department will continue to work to keep us all safe. But we need you. We should not have to mourn the loss of another student. And I'm asking you to please put an end to the violence and to come together as a community to heal. For those families that are mourning, I'm so sorry. And we will rally around you and rally as a community to show the love, the healing, and the resilience that we have. I do want to acknowledge and thank Carol Levers, who recently organized with the library staff an event with our sister city in Croatia, a public library event. Unfortunately, I could not attend, but I attended the first one that you held, and so just want to acknowledge that's exciting work that the library is doing to continue to build relationships across the world, and so you continue to do some great things. I want to say thank you to Dr. Stubblefield for providing testimony recently at the Kansas legislature, and you did a great job advocating and representing our district, and it serves as a reminder for us of the critical lens that we continue to be watched and how we must continue to rise to the occasion as a district to continue to close those achievement gaps and to grow as a district. So thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, for representing our community and our district in Topeka. And I do want to acknowledge that we have a board member-elect present with us, Rachel Russell. We look forward to your service in the upcoming month. Thank you for joining us today. As for those of you that know Rachel, she continues to be super engaged in our district and has jumped right into her role as board member-elect and really engaging to prepare for her service in the upcoming months. Thanks for joining us. And lastly, I do want to take a moment to congratulate, to thank, and to lift up our friend and colleague, Dr. Stacy Yeager, for your years of service to this great district and to this community and to our students. Today's your official last regular board meeting, although you never know, I may call a special meeting or two between now and the end of the month. But as a board and district, we do definitely want to say thank you for all that you have given to this district, to our students. Your honesty, your caring, your commitment to our students is always on display. And so we appreciate that. You've challenged and helped us to be a better board and a better district. And we appreciate you, and we just want you to know that you will always be part of KCKPS family. So we want to say thank you, Dr. Yeager, for your years of service and commitment. And we know that you're not a stranger, so you'll still be around, right?
Yes.
So
Yep.
let's give it up and thank Dr. Yeager for his service. And we do have a little something for you. So
Do you want me to help you?
maybe Edwin, can we grab a quick? I just want to say thank you. Dr. Yeager, if you have anything that you'd like to share, if not, we can continue on with our agenda, but I thought I'd give you a moment to share any remarks if you'd like.
I just want to say thank you. This 4 years have been rewarding, celebrating, and I thank you as the community for trusting me to help take care of your babies in the district. We've had highs and lows and good and bad, and the great thing is that I continue to see that this group of colleagues, plus Rachel who's coming on, is going to continue to move this district forward. So I'm excited that we are on the right path to improving things for our students. I'm excited that I get to be part of the community again and help make decisions and give my opinion. And not to worry, you can still continue to count on me and send me those emails and tag. I'll make sure that they get to the right area. But these are great people who will continue to lead the district. It's bittersweet that I'm leaving. I will miss all of you. I miss the staff, the chief, Randy, and Dr. Stubblefield. Everyone has truly a passion for this district in their heart. And so again, I want to thank you. Thank you for your support these 4 years. And I look forward to just continuing to serve you in any capacity that I can. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager. And with that, I'll open, if there are any board commentary. Dr. Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I too like to congratulate Dr. Stubblefield for her presentation during the intense special committee on K-12 education. I served as the ranking member, and because of that, was able to, we will file a minority report because of the one-sided agenda that was presented. For the board, there were 4 topics that we will continue to be concerned about and that will impact us and that we were the subject of. You can guess the first one, that would be assessment, state assessment scores. USD 500 was profiled along with Wichita, Dodge City, and Hutchinson. Scores compared, reading, math, and it was clear that because we are among the schools who filed a lawsuit were highlighted. And that was the first day. Dr. Stubblefield came in the second day. But again, the point that everyone recognizes state assessments are just one data point, but they're constantly being reviewed. And so we still must look to improve those scores. The second topic that you're not a stranger to, that we had intense conversations last spring, was the needs assessment. The legislation, we went over it, that requires the board to use them in determining, creating the budget based on performance of students per building capacities. The ROSE capacities are basic standards, basic education, 21st century learning, but they're codified now. They're in the statute. So I unfortunately did not agree with the presenter. We were one of 2, and Dr. Stubblefield has the testimony, one of 25 schools who returned the survey. However, we were still lambasted for how they were completed. Another topic that we're not used to talking about, that will continue to, I'll say, the legislation will tighten up the use of at-risk funds for at-risk programs. The handwriting is on the wall, but it's near impossible to do. But those who are anti-public schools want to be able to track the outcomes of those students that are using at-risk funds. But measurement of student outcome is written in the legislation, so we have to be aware of that. And then one final topic that is a little off, actually out of the realm of the legislature, but continued to come back, was the rules and regulations toward accreditation of the State Board of Education. State Board of Education is self-executing. They're their own body. But this group of legislators are determined to somehow dig, influence. They drilled the chairman of the State Board of Education. Not really clear what they were getting after, but this will be an ongoing attack. So state assessments, needs assessments, use of at-risk funds, State Board of Education will take care of its own self, but those are three topics that we, Mr. President, I would probably suggest with a new board member coming on board, we start early and look at what the board's responsibility is. So thank you, Mr. President. Thank you again, Dr. Stubblefield, for taking some of the heat. She was third in line, so they were finished with Wichita and Atchison by the time they got to her. And we stayed about 2 hours off schedule. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Any other board commentary? Ms. Humphries?
I just wanted to say I've been very pleased with my visits to our schools. I've made it to over 7 in the last few weeks, and I've got to see our children learning and how happy they are to be back with their teachers. And I've gotten a lot of good feedback on our new ELA curriculum that the teachers are anxious to get their hands on, and a lot of positive feedback on the letters training that our teachers have been getting. They're very, very excited. And to see our parents out at the music programs that are so many of them right now, because it's into the school year, holiday season, to see the joy of the kids up on the stage performing for their parents, sharing their experiences. If you need a lift, come to one of the programs, come visit one of the schools, because you'll leave with a joy in your heart. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Okay, thank you. We'll continue with our agenda. Next is we will hear from Ms. Carol Levers, who will give her library's report. Ms. Levers, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Good evening, Board. Dr. Stubblefield. First of all, I want to share with you, if you all read the pitch, you would have noticed that usually each year they decide to do the best of, whether it's the best of restaurants, whether the best of schools, or the best of businesses. This year, they decided to go to all the libraries in Kansas. And guess what? The main library was voted best library branch by the pitch for 2021. So we're pretty proud and excited. Johnson County Central Branch was the runner-up, so we smile.
Take that.
As Mr. Lopez mentioned, we've connected with Croatia, we're collaborating with the Croatian libraries, and we had our first webcam, and he joined us at that time. We did the second one on November 29th, And this time, the libraries of Croatia shared with us what they were doing. The first time they wanted to know how did we handle the COVID, during COVID, what did we do? And we did that. Very exciting times. They would like to come and visit us for a week early next year. So, and would like for us to do the same, but we'll still work those things out. Just wanted to report on that. So we're busy with our winter read. It started, this is for the adults, December 1st through February 28th. And each person who reads 8 books will earn 2 great prizes. And of course, you can pick that up at the library. It's a mug and cozy socks. So please sign up at kckpl.beanstack.org. I'm not sure if you're aware that Mr. and Mrs. Ethel Schlegel will be 21 years old this year. But we are actually celebrating the 20th Eagle Days because of COVID last year. We couldn't really celebrate, and we wanted to wait for better times. But we are going to celebrate the 20 years for Eagle Days, and that will be January 15th and 16th. So please come out, and it's usually fantastic. A day, so anybody interested, you're welcome to come. I had a book actually that I read, and it's for 5th grade to middle schools, and it's her story. I don't have a lot of copies, but this is the copies. And it's stories about the daughters of Mojaji, and that's 3 South African women wrote about 3 women. And some of our librarians asked me whether they can have the kids read, and I got the books for them. It's a little bit, it's about a middle school book, but the high school is Sumner High School. All the high schools, there were some students that wanted to take a part in this as well. So they read it, and I got the 3 ladies, the 3 authors from South Africa, to Skype and share with us why they wrote the book, what the book entails, and the kids. The kids were mesmerized. I think it's more about the accent than anything else, but they were wonderful. The top lady is Miss Ali. She is, all 3 are young ladies, and she is a CEO of a big company. The bottom one is Tandi. She is a human rights lawyer, and she works in The Hague in Netherlands. She is from South Africa, and she's going home, but she actually zoomed in from the Netherlands. And then we have Baba. She is an economist. And the kids, the children were mesmerized. They were just so excited. The book is about helping young girls to pursue whatever they want to pursue. If they could do it, the children asked all of them many questions, and it was a fantastic time to spend with them. And I think we'll look at, in the future for more books, especially international books, to expose our kids to more and different perspectives. This is, sorry, I didn't know I had that. But anyway, that's the book. And Wyandotte decided they're going to all sit in one classroom, whereas the other schools had, they linked in from their own laptops.
Were you able to take that?
Yes. Which I can share it with you. And then December 2nd, we had Dawn Turner. And her book is called 3 Girls from Bronzeville, a uniquely American memoir of race, fate, and sisterhood. We had 69 people attending the Zoom. And I think, Zoom, we needed Zoom last year with the COVID, but it's much better because we have adults watching grandkids that can Zoom in. They don't have to come to the library, for the program. They can do it from home, and they want us to keep going. And we will continue to do that. So it was fantastic. We had a read aloud from October 7th to December 2nd, every Thursday. We would read 3 chapters, and all the people, all the adults would Zoom in and read, and they feel that it's a great service that we are giving them. So I want to share with you, February 17th, we will have Richard Rothstein, and please register as soon as you can at kckpl.librarymarket.com. In order for you to get a free copy. We don't have many copies for his book, but he wrote The Color of Law. And as you can see, his book documents how American cities from San Francisco to Boston became so racially divided as federal, state, and local governments systematically imposed residential segregation. We are collaborating with Johnson County Museum, and we will be doing that. So please, as soon as you can, get that so that you can get your copy. And even if you don't, we're also going to have a read aloud from January 12th to February 16th. You don't have to sign in, but at least you will have your copy for the night when he will be our guest speaker. I want to wish you all happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and everything of the best. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to.
Thank you, Ms. Levers. Any questions for Carol? Ms. Humphries?
I happened to be at Central Middle School during the Zoom with the authors, and I walked into the library, and the kids were so engaged. They were so excited, and the librarian was just telling me it's great to have things like that for our students. So thank you very much, Carol.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you, Ms. Levers. Your motion to accept the information report from Ms. Levers for the library?
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions, discussion? Not Ms. Downing, roll call, please.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is our consent agenda. We'll take a motion to approve today's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Not Ms. Downing?
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next on our agenda is our new business section. First up, is a discussion on our school bell times revision proposal. Board, you have that in your agenda. Hopefully you've had a chance to review that. And this is in response to looking for options with our transportation needs that we have. And so I'll pass it to Dr. Stubblefield and staff if there's anything further you would like to share with the board.
I just wanted to echo what Randy shared. This was in response to specifically looking at creative ways to provide more transportation to more middle school students, because there is a change in the mileage requirement from when students move from elementary to middle. The operations team did look at multiple alternatives, but given the nationwide shortage of bus drivers, this was the one that would not require us to hire additional drivers. I think it would yield one additional driver, which if the board wanted us to move forward to explore what it would entail in more detail, that's the direction we're looking for. We do recognize that pushing the start times back, it may cause some unintended consequences and barriers for some of our elementary families, and have spoken with Lisa Garcia Stewart and some of our community partners around expanding Kids Zone and to hopefully be able to provide services at all of our school locations, given that the earliest that school would start at 9. We also have spoken with principals, have not moved forward with engaging NEA about the later school times, because typically staff is there, certified staff is there like 30 minutes after, and moving that on the front end of the day so that staff would not have to work later either. We preliminary have to have the conversation, and all of those are possible things, but before we moved forward, we just wanted direction with the board. Is this something that you want us to explore or explore other options, but trying to be creative around providing transportation for more of our middle schools next year.
Thank you, and I'll also again just share, and thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, for that. I know the board has received several emails with questions and concerns, and so I do want to acknowledge those, and board, please, make sure you see those and review those as well. Again, just appreciate all the feedback that we are receiving around this. This is not up for any type of action tonight. It really is discussion purposes and to provide guidance to our leadership on direction for them on how to move forward. So, Dr. Yeager?
So a number of questions that I had, especially from the community, is if we did not change the guidelines or restrictions to stay at the 1.5 mile distance, because I know there was particularly a couple of schools that had situations, but the majority of them did not. If we did not change the mileage and kept it as is, would it be feasible for us to keep our same schedule, or does the shortage in transportation still will result in a gap?
If we left all things the same, then this year we've been able to maintain, we've consistently had anywhere from 10 to 20 openings, but have been able to internally, like other people in other departments are driving buses and doubling up on routes and things like that. So we wouldn't be able to expand it if you don't do something. I know there, particularly the middle school that was had a different mileage and historically was Carl B. Bruce. I don't have the specifics around with the boundary changes and the number of routes that were lost. If we solely focused on that, that's some information that I can ask Miguel to provide, like if we reinstated Carl B. Bruce to where it was and left the others, that is something, we didn't explore that because they were looking at all middle schools, but that was the middle school that had the direct impact from the change this year.
Because I think that's a big factor, especially for the parents who wrote in and the community, is they appreciated our schedule because many of our teachers work outside of our district. And because of that, sometimes based upon the feedback we're getting, it appeared that the change would conflict with when they could pick up their children. And I'm just wondering if that would have the impact on hiring more teachers with our teacher shortage so that we won't lose teachers. So that was the main focus for me.
Thank you. Ms. Humphries?
The communication I have from elementary staff is they're very concerned with extending the school day, the learning part of the school day from 4 to 4:30, because they said it's already a struggle to keep the little ones engaged late in the afternoons, especially since their wake-up times would probably not change. They would still be getting up at 7 or earlier in the mornings. And they talk about how the optimum learning time in the elementary, especially with the littlest ones, is morning. So that I think is a concern. The other question I have is, do we know of any other districts that have changed it so that their elementary starts so late in the day, and how their outcomes have been? We know all the research that we've been reading for years about the teenage brains, and I am all for trying to figure out how to have our high school times later in the day, because 7:20 in the morning, I've seen the high school students, I remember being in high school, even though it was years ago, that I just wondered if, have we looked at having the elementary start half hour earlier and the high school maybe 8:30 and 9? I'm just curious how many different things we looked at.
So that was looked at, and that's something we could explore, but the assumption was made because so many of our families that we heard from in the previous years when the Wednesday was going to be taken away, that the high school or older siblings are responsible for the elementary students after school care. But again, that's something we can explore if we're exploring expanding Kids Zone, because you could flip them. But then we still would probably have to figure out how to support families that their older siblings will be in school later than their younger siblings, and how we could provide some sort of care or support in that way. We didn't dig deep. That was noted on there. We looked at it, but the assumption was made that that would create a different barrier for families. But we definitely can look at it. We can engage families and surveys and see how they would prioritize, if that would be the preference, to have elementary start earlier and the secondary. The other thing you'll run into with secondary starting too late, if you do 30 minutes, you would be okay. But when you think about our peer districts and activities and athletics and competitions, they will start to miss academic time if you go too much past the 30 minutes. So if you try to flip them, I would have to have Miguel, we would have to be very, very cognizant of not going past a 3 o'clock dismissal for our secondary, or they would miss academic time for athletics and activities for competitions. Because like today, there were games that started at 4:30 and 5 o'clock, and so they'll need to leave to travel and that kind of thing. Yeah.
I would like to have we got a lot of information from people today, a lot of questions.
We can go back and look at it some more and see what that means, and as far as what could be done to flip it, and then survey families to see how many families will be impacted, and continue to explore. Regardless of what happens, we have talked about expanding Kids Zone to more campuses so that it's provided on the campus. Mm-hmm.
Because the older siblings that do provide the after-school childcare, I don't know, if we had more Kids Zone opportunities, maybe more of our children on the secondary level could participate in after-school activities, which, as we know, is very important to some of our students.
Okay, we can look at both of those options.
Dr. Nguyen?
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. I guess I just need some clarity on statements that you've made. When you say expanding Kids Zone, is that only in the after-school timeframe?
The community partners, and when I talked to Lisa Garcia student, we looked at it on both ends.
Okay.
Before and after school care, probably targeting more, making sure like if the elementary were to go to 9:30, targeting those schools first and then the 9 o'clock. But we were looking at it on both ends, before and after.
Good, because that reflects some of the sentiments from some of the emails that we've gotten. And you're just trying to, the question, I guess, is, are you just trying to deal with the number of bus drivers you have, but you're not going to preclude hiring more?
No, we would still continue to recruit and try to fill. We still have open positions this year, so it was looked at if optimally we could fulfill all the positions we had this year, we would be able to provide that more bus schedules for all of our students. If we needed to hire more, I think one of the options was you leave it the same and you just add additional buses. It will mean that in addition to the 10 to 20 that we consistently have, we would have 20 more drivers. So we would be trying to hire anywhere from 30 to 40 more new drivers,
Right.
With the current openings, and then adding those. But it doesn't prevent us from, if that's the direction we go, we just would be trying to fill it. But that will be if we had that many openings now, I don't know what we would do for all of the routes, for gaps that we have now.
Because as I travel past, let's say, for example, Shawnee Mission South, I think I've mentioned it before, you've got these huge banners hiring bus drivers. I don't see us advertising any place, but that may just be the route I take. But if we are in need, then why aren't we advertising where that visibly the community can see them? Another point, if we're going to expand into the mornings or afternoons, I would think that would mean we would need to hire more security, because we don't want, we just need to hire more security to expand our services. And then, we can change our mileage limits. So some of these parental concerns can be addressed if we have the bus drivers. It's just, what state aid provides, but I know the State Board of Education is proposing to change their mileage limits. But we're only restricted by what we'll get by state aid, but other than that, we can pick up a kid if he's across the street from the school. And I don't know if that is communicated well to our community. But again, it's a multiple number of factors, we realize that, but those limits don't prohibit all of our movement. And I know we know that.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Page?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, on behalf of Carl B. Bruce, we're concerned about the kids, and I would still like to see us change that to 1.0 so we can make sure that those kids who are still walking in the dark, everybody's talking about the kids, but we still got babies walking in the dark, walking on streets that have no sidewalks. Now, I know we can't do everything, but we can do something, and I know this is an attempt to try to address that. But we got to remember, the kids are first. I'm not saying we shouldn't be concerned about what the adults are going through, but it should focus on what's best for the kids when we do this. So I just want us to remember, on that middle school level at Carl B. Bruce, that is still a problem. How do we get these kids back and forth? And hopefully we will change that to 1.0 and provide transportation so these kids can get back and forth.
Thank you. Dr. Yeager?
Last point I want to make is, although we're expanding Kids Zone, there is a fee to Kids Zone. So we may need to think about how can we finance that. I know it's $30 for one kid for after school, and then if it's both, it's $60 per week for a child. So if a parent has 3 children, that may not be feasible for them to pay money for before after care, even if it's available. So I think it's important for us to look at community resources and any funding that could possibly help, because the parents have to decide before after care or food. That's a hard choice. Before after care, rent. We're putting our parents in an interesting predicament, and as much as a wraparound approach we can give is really important for us to consider.
And
Page?
ESSER funds be used for that? I don't know, I'm not saying
And I
it
would
is, but-
say, globally, yes, but then we would also have to have a plan for when they're gone for sustainability, because there is a time limit when they have to be spent. So in the interim, specifically if we're using it to address academics, SEL, and those kind of things, which we do share with Kids Zone, we did expand Kids Zone with some of the dollars from ESSER too. So absolutely it can be, but we just would have to have a sustainability plan if that's something we want to offer to families on a long-term basis.
And when you said we expand, did we give them a discount? Or, I didn't know if it was free, because when we read the report.
So, in Mr. Lincoln's, I don't know if Lisa is on, I think with Kids Zone, there are scholarships and those kind of things. So for some families pay a fee and some families don't. It just depends on the needs of the family. Yeah.
I'm here. I can certainly jump on if it's appropriate.
Yes, yes.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Good evening to the board members, President Lopez, Dr. Stubblefield. So we have 3 modes of which Kids Zone can provide payment for services. Some of our families receive assistance for childcare through DCF. If they cannot afford to pay for either morning or afternoon, then we do have a process in which families can complete an application, and we support them so that we can provide the needs in whichever avenue is most appropriate for the family, depending on each situation. I hope that's helpful.
So they would need to contact you?
Yes, they'll actually contact Michelle Wortham. She's the coordinator of Kids Zone. They work with her. The application's online. And Leah Laughlin is our program specialist for Kids Zone. They work directly with the families. And each family has to complete an application so that we have emergency contact, if there are any food allergies, all of that we keep on file. And if there is any challenges with the fee, then we work with them to navigate an opportunity for a scholarship so that we remove any barriers for the families.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Humphries?
I think as we're looking at this, we need to remember it's not just one middle school that has children that are walking on streets with no sidewalks and crossing railroad tracks and all types of barriers. So we need to look at across the whole district if we're going to change the mileage requirement so that we're being equitable to all of our kids. And I really would like to see us do a good survey of the parents to see what they would prefer, giving them information up front, whether there would be after-school Kids Zone, before-school Kids Zone. Because our community decided many years ago that it was important to provide transportation to school. And if I remember correctly, most of our kids are transported on local tax dollars because of the state, like 1.5 miles, I believe, is what they reimburse for. I may have it wrong. If Miguel's around, he would know for sure. But we provide a lot of the transportation funding out of our local tax dollars because we transport kids that are underneath or under the state limit. So if our community wants us to do this, then we need to let them know we need their support.
Ms. Drew?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I'm in agreement with the idea of doing a survey to see if we can get some feedback, not only from the parents, but we also have to look at our staff as well to be considered, to help them to be considered to recognize what changes that are going to take place. This is an endeavor that we want to do to make sure that our students are going to continue to be able to learn educationally. But there are going to be some changes, some that we may like, some that we may not like. But we have to first make sure that we cover our bases with everything to make sure we get enough information so that we can present it in a way that may be acceptable. Some successes, some failures, but yet and still to do it in an effective way.
Thank you. Any other comments or further discussion? Dr. Stubblefield, I saw you jotting down a ton of notes, so hopefully you've gotten some information that could be helpful. It sounds like a survey is something that the board would really like to proceed with and just get feedback from community and staff and other constituents about what their priorities are and what's important for them as we continue this discussion and dialogue. And then really evaluating our mileage and where we can pick students up and what does that look like. And again, understanding the vacancy needs and what that might mean in the future in terms of hiring. So is there anything further, like for clarification, that you would want to ask the board that you need some feedback on or guidance as you take this back with staff?
No, I think I'll take it back and I will say, so people don't think that a survey is coming out next week, we probably will not do a survey until sometime after the first of the year when the KU will send out their survey and information for the environmental scan, so we'll let that all close out so that we don't confuse or over-inundate staff and families with information. So it will be after that survey.
So should we send, as we read all the information that we're receiving in our email from teachers and families. Should we send you our questions and, so that you have more things to work on?
Yeah, if you all receive the same ones, Randy can just shift them so that all 7 of you are not sending them. And
Okay,
then we
that's
can
what I wanted to know.
compile
So if
that.
we send them to Randy and let him
Yes.
Yeah.
collate them.
As you have questions that come up or from those emails, I'll try to sift through and kind of pull out the themes or questions that are coming up. But if there are specific questions that you all have or are hearing, and you want to make sure that I'm getting them or that we're getting them, please send them and I'll make sure they get to Dr.
Okay, I
Stubblefield.
just wanted to make sure we knew who to send them to, so like you said, you're not getting
Yeah.
7 different emails with the same information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, board, for that dialogue and discussion. Okay, so we will continue on with our agenda. Next up is conversation around replacement of shop vehicles. And I see Mr. Doug Clements coming to the podium, so.
Yeah. And again, board members, this is the new business item. Doug is here to answer any questions that you may have. And this is replacing current vehicles that are on a 5-year rotation plan.
Correct. Good evening, Dr. Stubblefield, President Lopez, Board. Happy holidays to everybody. So if there's any questions about this, this is for the purchase of 5 vehicles to replace 4 vans and a pickup truck, all working on some fairly high mileage, ranging from about 120,000 all the way up to about 250,000 miles, daily use vehicles for our shop technicians.
Any questions for Mr. Clements?
How often do we replace them?
Well, we're working on that. You know, when I first got here, we didn't replace them very often, and we had some really high mileage. So we're working towards getting down to a point. We put about 10,000 miles per year on our vehicles. I'd like to get it to where we could replace vehicles after, 6, 7, 8 years, where we still have some value on those trade-ins, and actually reduce our costs as we replace them annually. So that's a kind of a tricky question. The oldest one I think that we're replacing or target to replace this time was a 2004. And the newest is 2012, so now they're ranging from 10 to 17 years old on this round.
Now, do you sell them to anyone, or do you trade them in? How does that work?
These we haven't actually worked on a trade. We've because most of our vehicles have been pretty old and high mileage, we've sold them on gov deals. We'll have to work and see what kind of trade-in value we might get on these particular vehicles. I think it'd be pretty low.
Other questions? No. If not, board, this is for informational purposes only and discussion, so no action required tonight.
Well, one more question. And where are we buying them from? Are we going to any local dealerships?
This is going through, we have availability to purchase through a purchasing contract co-op through Shawnee Mission Ford. And so that's who gave us the quote on this.
So no local, I know you said you're going through Shawnee Mission Ford.
Right.
Do we ever try to get any local dealerships?
We have periodically put out to bid, but then we have to restrict the, like the miles where we're going. It's a little trickier on the vehicles like that. So I did not this time, went to strict because I know Shawnee Mission Ford can sell them on this contract, but we can certainly explore that in the future.
I mean, if we can, I hear us saying local people are donating things, and they would like the opportunity as well as our surrounding neighbors.
Certainly.
Be able to have an opportunity to compete. And sometimes we don't give them that opportunity. And true, they may not be able to supply, but when they can we at least reach out to them?
We can.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Doug. All right. And board, as always, if you have questions that come up as you're reviewing the information, please send those along to Dr. Stubblefield and we can get those answered for you. Next on our agenda is our board updates and approval. These are items that have come before the board previously. First up, we will hear from Ms. Darcy Swan, or just what's coming before you is the purchase of the Amplify CKLA reading resource for K through 3. Board, this has come before you previously and is up for action tonight. And Ms. Swan is here to answer any questions if there are questions from the board.
Mr. Lopez?
Yes, Dr. Nguyen, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Good evening.
Good evening. I've been asked a couple questions. Does this proposal include training costs for the teachers?
Yes, it does.
It does include that. And that, are there teacher manuals and lesson plans, I guess are those consumables that you call them, are they come along with this?
Yes, it is an all-inclusive adoption of teacher resources, student materials. So teachers will have printed materials as well as online materials. Students will also have online access, and then consumable workbooks.
Okay. And I guess I'll ask you again, the training cost is in this? I
Correct.
think you were asked last time that, and it was not.
No, it is part of the training. I mean, it is in the proposal that is provided to you in the contract. What they did is they discounted us over $100,000 on the training, so the training is only costing us about, I think it was $39,000.
Okay. Thank you, Madam.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Are there other questions?
Make a motion that we purchase the Amplify CKLA reading resource for K through 3.
I second it.
There's a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Downing, would you please do a roll call vote?
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Swan and team, for all the work you've put into this. This is a great step for our district and students, so thank you.
Thank you, Board of Education.
Next on our agenda is an update on the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools staff COVID testing policy update. I believe Mr. Linkus.
I just saw.
I don't think there's any action required tonight. It's just an update on the policy on the testing as we move forward.
Yeah, he was just in here. He stepped out, if you want, because the next would have been a report from, we can go.
We just skip.
Yeah.
Mr.
back to it.
Lopez.
Yes.
I have a question. I didn't catch it. Dr. Stubblefield, when you gave your updates, you said there would be testing done for 5 to 10 to 11-year-olds, but I didn't get what school that was going to be done.
It's a vaccination event. It's for 5 to 11-year-olds, so the families who want to get their 5 to 11-year-olds vaccinated, we're hosting it at Grant Elementary.
Okay.
We are planning, we're in communication with the health department to send out some surveys, and they'll do some additional events in, after the first of the year at some other locations. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I just didn't get the school.
Thank you, Ms. Page. And Mr. Linkus, so I believe you have an update for us on the testing in the schools. So we'll ask you to come forward. Thank you.
I do. I apologize. Ran out for a second and didn't realize it'd be up that quickly. Let me find my presentation. So good evening, Board. Board President Lopez, Vice President Clark, fellow members of the board. I'd also like to thank you guys for the opportunity to come up, just give you kind of an update on where we are. So this is in regard to the staff COVID testing policy. So the first slide is just a reminder of the policy that was passed by the board, and it highly encourages all eligible staff and on-site volunteers to get vaccinated. I know that was the language that was used in the policy, and we looked at getting as many people get their vaccination cards uploaded by December 3rd. What I can tell you at this point is we roughly, in checking today, have about 2,800 staff members that have uploaded vaccine cards, and that's out of roughly about 4,400 employees. So I am not the math major, so what I did is I used my calculator earlier, and that was about 63.5%. So we still probably will see more staff upload those, but we're within that 60 to 70% range that we thought we would be in, so that's a good thing. The other piece of that that's very important is the 5 additional days, the sick days that you receive for uploading your card. So in talking about that, I just want to remind everybody, and if we have employees watching and just as we go through, there is the option after June 30th to roll these over, or there's also the option to get paid for them. What was approved by the board was $150 a day, and that was approved at a previous meeting. So that's how that would work. The only caveat to that is they cannot use enough sick days to where they start using those. That's what would be impacted. So in looking at the rollovers, some other things that have been confusing to people has been how many days you get. And we did talk about a prorated system. And one of the things we did say, and we did have discussion here at a previous meeting, is that getting the cards turned in December, you'll get the 5 days. If you turn them in January, it's 4. February 3, March 2, and April 1. One of the good things with this is I've actually had staff members tell me, hey, I just went and got my first shot. So they may still not get the 5 because they won't meet the December deadline, but they're still going to be entitled to some days. So we do think this encourages staff who still wants to do this to do so, but it also respects the opinion of staff members who maybe don't want to get the shot. It gives them options and it keeps our working staff here. So in looking at the implementation timeline, we had put a self-imposed December 6th date because we had looked at some things and thought we could roll out on that day. Some things have changed since the last time I've been in front of you. One is the federal mandate has now been bumped back to January 31st. And what I do want to say is we are not looking to go to January 31st, so I just want to be very clear on that. But we are now looking at a date of January 10th, and one of the reasons behind that is with having over 50 sites, there's a lot of equipment that had to go to the sites. There's a lot of technology that had to be downloaded. With roughly 1,600 employees, we're working on getting them into Talent Ed, and I have to thank HR, Tiffany Lewis, Elizabeth, and Nathan, because they've been looking over to make sure we're good there. But there's a lot of logistical pieces that we're still working on. So we're doing those types of things, and we want to make sure this rolls out in the best possible manner. The other thing we're looking at, and we just want to be very clear about, is whether someone is funded under federal funds, as we're talking about with our pre-K and employees in that sense, there's still a testing requirement. So the federal government, when they sent out their documentation not too long ago, it specifically states in there for anyone that would be exempted under their terms, they still have to test weekly. So that aligns with what we're doing with the testing policy that our board passed. And I think one of the things we've heard from staff and questions we received is some confusion between a vaccine mandate and a testing policy. So with us, we have a testing policy, but even those who may fall under the vaccine mandate from the federal government, they would still have to test weekly. So all employees who have not uploaded their vaccine card would still have to test weekly, and I just want to be very clear on that because there has been confusion, and I know Cabinet has received many questions. I know members of the board have received those questions, so we just want to be clear about that. We're looking at data from our initial testing. Every school site started this week. We had some school sites where it started very well, and we had some hiccups at some other sites. We're fixing those as part of the pilot. We're making sure that all the pieces are in place. The other thing we have to remember is all of our school sites were asked what are their top 3 times that they would prefer to have their staff test. And that was part of the logistics piece and working with Bright Star because they're the ones providing the nurses to do the testing. We had to get all that information. It had to be relayed with them. And our Director of Health Services, Tiffany Lewis, had a number of meetings with them so that we could secure that. And now we have set times that were sent out to schools last week. So as we can continue with this pilot, we'll get to where we want to be, to where everything is flowing in the manner that we all know it can. So results will still be available within 24 to 48 hours. And we look forward to January 10th to getting this going full steam. One last caveat is we did not go with the 3rd of January just because we know coming back after a break, hey, I'm going to be a little sleepy that day like everybody else, so it's just a little tougher, so the 10th would be just a better date. And plus, it gives us that week to make sure that everyone's there, nothing has changed, and there's no adjustments that have to be made to the process. So thank you for a few minutes to come up. Just wanted to run that by you, and I'm here to answer any questions.
Ms. Page?
Yeah. When is this, you said you're getting questions. Are they coming together on a professional development day, and this is presented to everyone? Does anyone have to sign off that we did go over this information? It was reviewed, it was discussed, I had an opportunity to ask questions, because I'm just wondering, are they going over it with them, and do people really understand? And do we want them to sign off? Because that way you can hold people accountable.
So what I can say is we haven't had specific professional development. That could be something that could be done, or having them sign off if the board would suggest that. But as Ms. Lewis can tell you, she does get a lot of questions from staff in regards to the different pieces that I brought up. And that's where we get a lot of the questions that I brought forward and said, these are the things that we're hearing.
I guess in my mind, I'm thinking, there's no meeting where if let's say I'm at Central, and the principal says, we're gonna go over this, we brought in people, we wanna make sure everybody understands. Because if it's gone over with, we review it, we discuss it, I don't know if they sign off that we did, I don't know, I'm just saying, you would think we would do that to cover ourselves.
So I would say that every employee received direct communication and was told that they can follow up specifically with their principal or someone from health services. The questions we are getting are mainly around clarification around, so if I submit my vaccination late, like it's the information that's been covered, but then people had unique circumstances when trying to upload it. They ran into different challenges, like if you didn't use the right browser or upload it through a JPEG and those kind of things. The questions that I'm aware of, and Ms. Lewis is in the back as well, they're more technical, not around whether they're expected to either test weekly or upload a vaccination card. It's more technical questions.
Okay, but I just didn't want, I hate to see people plead ignorance. You know, if we go over this, we review this, I'm just old school, let's sign off, so that way there's no question you didn't get it, because we took the time to go over. We asked questions, we went over things, because somebody's gonna say, well, I didn't get that. When did they send that email? So I don't know, I'm just saying, that kind of bothers me, I question.
Yeah. One of the things we can do, either before the break, and Dr. Campbell and the IAOs can follow up with principals, and Mr. Turan and those of us here can make sure that within our department, because a lot of people are having gatherings, to just make sure that people know where to find it and that kind of thing, in like that kind of setting, we can definitely communicate some information out to supervisors and building principals. Since we are doing the rollout on all sites right now before the break, so that will be an opportunity for principals, because right now, everybody at every site will get some sort of communication. If they do not have a vaccination card uploaded, they're being contacted right now before it's required. So there is it's a couple of weeks of grace there to just touch base with everybody to make sure that they understand, since we won't officially start until January 10th. So we had this week, next week, the week that we come back after break, and then January 10th is, so they'll have 3 weeks of opportunity to engage and follow up with the right people before there will be any sort of progressive coaching or anything like that.
Any other questions or discussion?
I'd just like to say, according to the information that's been presented, they have to upload the information through the computer. That in itself would be verification that they understand what they have to do. And then if they don't do it, as Mr. Link has said, that they will be tested weekly if they have not presented their card. So that's a check and balance system in itself. But to follow up with what Dr. Stubblefield suggested, whereas they will be notified if the information is not done, that's their verification right there.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen?
Thank you, and this is a response, I guess, repeat, Ms.
Humphreys.
Anyway, Humphreys, Janie asked in one of the pre-planning meetings, as volunteers, we're in and out of schools, where do we upload?
So what would happen with volunteers, and this is one of the programs we're working with, our volunteers all go through Validity.
I'll go through what?
Validity, that's the
Okay.
program we use, and all volunteers currently use that and will continue to do so. One of the things is they're creating a special file folder, is probably the best way to put it. So that's where the volunteers would go with the vaccination cards, because they have the background checks and all the other pieces that volunteers used to go in. But there would be a specific area where the vaccination cards would go, and that would be the same limited access to those who can look at that we have in Talent Ed. So it would be our health department people like Tiffany and a couple members of her team and HR, and they're there for verification. But
And as board members, I talked to Dr. Knightbeck, and he was going to, once it's solidified, give me some information to send to you directly, to upload it through Validity as well. So
Okay.
that's still been flushed out, and
Yeah.
once that's finalized, I did talk to him last week, and he said that that's where they would set up board members as well, yeah.
And then where would then those who are not vaccinated do the testing?
So are you talking about volunteers or board members?
Board members who serve as volunteers?
So Greg shared, and I don't want to speak for him, that as elected officials to do the elected duties, it wouldn't be, we couldn't do that, but if they were volunteering somewhere else, then we can give the schedule of all the testing sites.
Basically, you'd be treated just like the other volunteers.
Correct.
For testing purposes for the volunteer activities, which
Okay.
include going to activities or going to events. But if it's like a board meeting, we couldn't do that for that part.
Well, it's good to know. You probably next time talking to the microphone.
And Dr. Nguyen, what we'll also do is, we're going to work with the volunteer groups to get them tested at the closest school possible or where they're actually volunteering, so that it doesn't inconvenience the type of work they're doing. So we would do that the same with anybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lopez.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Along those lines, and just we don't need to respond or discuss, but as we've talked about, and I know several board members have talked about outside groups coming in to volunteer and help with our students and just with some of the mentoring and tutoring and things of that nature, just making sure that we're helping them get through the technical aspects. And I know Student Services does a great job of helping them get through the training and the background checks, but as we add this component to it, to make sure that that's not a barrier for any groups that want to help work with our students. So thank you to the team for that work.
And just to let you know, Lisa Garcia Stewart has already started communication with our current volunteers, and they're also setting up processes so that when we get new volunteers on board, it'll be part of their onboarding at the beginning. So we'll get our crew that's helping us, but then we'll also help the new individuals as well. So thank you.
Thank you to the team. Any further questions or discussion? Thank you, Mr. Linkus and team, for that update.
Thank you.
Okay. So continuing with our agenda, next up, we have a report from RSP and Associates, and I would pass this along to Dr. Stubblefield to introduce.
Yeah, so next we have Rob Swartz, and Rob, you can introduce your partner. As the board members remember, you approved the student enrollment analysis and demographic study. So you can have information as you think about boundaries and balancing, and so that's what Rob and his team will share tonight. So I'll turn it over to Rob.
All right, good evening, board and
Good
Dr.
evening.
Stubblefields. I've known Dr. Stubblefield for a long time. This is my first time in person to be able to say congratulations. I obviously have gotten older. She has stayed her same age back from our KU days. Tonight, we're going to go over an overview of the enrollment. You're not going to have anything that's a next step of what you need to do with the enrollment. That's for a later time. This is really the moment for you to understand what the enrollment is for each of your buildings. To present this evening, I have Jenna Wallace, one of our planners, and I'll let her take it away. She's much more brief than I am, so you'll probably appreciate that.
All right. Good evening, Board. Like Rob said, my name's Jenna Wallace. I'm a planner with RSP. Just a brief introduction. RSP, we're a long-range planning firm that specializes in school district planning. So I think we've done some work with you in the past, and then we're going to give you this 21-22 enrollment analysis. So your 5-year projections, and then kind of leading into what that would look like for capacity of buildings for the next 5 years. So we always kind of break our presentation into 4 main parts. So I'll go through your past enrollment as well as demographics of your students, your current development and how that will play into new families coming in and et cetera, where that's going to be located in your district, as well that has a lot of graphics to show district-wide where we're looking at. Our part 3 is the main serving, so that's your projections and your 5-year capacity of your schools, and then the summary of your part 4, next steps, and what to do with this information. So this is also quite a summary slide, so 1,000-foot perspective of your enrollment. So we're seeing our projections overall, so I'll get more into this, but overall we're going to be seeing an increase of around 400 students, a decrease in middle school students, and a decrease in high school students. But overall, this pretty balances out for your district enrollment to maintain. Your capacity, we're seeing some capacity challenges in the next 5 years in New Chelsea Elementary, Wellborn Elementary, Carl Bruce Middle School, J.C. Harmon High School, and Wyandotte High School. And then we'll get into all those of what that means, if it's where it's greater and where there's capacity challenges, or maybe it's just a small, maybe one tight year, and then it also evens back out. Lastly, we'll go into your housing market, which is something that plays a big role in projecting student enrollment. So we're seeing a little bit of a limitation in new housing inventory, so that kind of plays into why we're not growing substantially, and kind of just those effects of putting it into new families coming in and kindergarten enrollment. So your first visual of the night, so we've got your district boundary, pretty widespread. I'm sure you guys are very familiar with your district boundary, as well as an elementary boundary, so your different, all your schools there we can see are color-coded. Your middle school boundary, and your high school boundary last. So I know there was the recent boundary changes as well, and even that as a discussion to moving forward. So something in our model is that we break down your district into what we call planning areas. Planning areas are personally drawn by RSP, and they break down your district into tiny areas that may be subdivisions, apartment complexes, bigger neighborhoods, something that we draw when we look through your district boundary street by street. And that gives us a way to, when we take your student data, put them in a planning area and project that student population by each area. So we evaluated around 700 planning areas for KCK, and that kind of plays into our overall just projection accuracy. So in our model, everything is focused on data, so we pull in all that student data, we geocode them into their address, and then we can populate if it's in, they live in a single-family development, what's that going to look like in 5 years, and et cetera. That's just like a little bit more of all the different variables that go into our model. One of the main important variables that goes into the model as well is live birth data. So overall, in KCK and Wyandotte County, we are seeing less live births than the past. But this is consistent with national and state trends. Overall, in all the school districts and counties, we're seeing lower live births. We are maintaining, though, that KCK Public Schools is enrolling 60 to 65% of those live births 5 years later. As well as your past enrollment. So last year, or in this current year, my apologies, your smallest class is your senior class with 1,219 students, and your largest class is 9th grade with 1,932 students. So your kindergarten enrollment has rebounded and is coming back up from 2006-07. And we did see the smallest kindergarten class last year. However, it's been a crazy 2 years, so those numbers are more of an outlier than anything in our model. Overall, since last year, our district enrollment increased by 68 students. It's always a pretty good rule of thumb when you're looking at these, just to do a little check of the senior class, the size, and the kindergarten class coming in. And if there's more kindergartners coming in than seniors going out, you're probably going to be maintaining or growing. So this is a similar table that's just going to show that cohort change. So you can kind of look at each grade individually and see when they moved on, if we lost them. So we can see that our largest 3-year average it was 8th to 9th grade, where we gained 169 students. And your largest 3-year decrease was from 9th to 10th grade, when we lost 206 students. So the negative cohort change happened in all grade levels, except kindergarten to 1st grade and 8th to 9th. So overall, just a quick conclusion of the past enrollment. We saw an increase of 68 students from last year. We maintained our 700 planning areas and was able to geocode those students to seeing where they are living throughout the district. Your smallest class is your senior class, and your largest class was your 9th grade class. In-migration and out-migration, these are kind of other analysis that are in the full packets that we provided earlier. So that's more of analysis to kind of show where students are transferring in and out at those elementary and middle school ages. Overall, we have students distributed throughout the district with the highest density east of Highway 635. So we're decreasing by live birth, but we're maintaining that percentage of live births of Wyandotte County. So moving on to development and growth within your county. This is kind of a graph that kind of just shows comparatively of your occupancy, so how many people are living, your enrollment, and then the building. So your census data is indicating an increase in population. Your building is fairly limited, and then your student enrollment had a negative drop, but is recovered since in the current year. So that's likely due to COVID-19. So this was something that I mentioned earlier, where we can break down your students in the type of planning area that they live in, so single family versus multifamily. And then this is also a useful tool when moving on in the years of if a new development is coming online and where it's located in your district, of how many students you're assuming that you might get out of this. If it's going to be a really large single family development in this area, right now we're seeing 21 students per 100 single family households. And then we can break that down by elementary school boundary. So John Fisk and Emmy Pearson have the highest single-family yield rate with 35 students per 100 households. For multifamily, the district is seeing 18 students per 100 multifamily households on average, and Emerson Elementary School has the largest multifamily yield rate with 38 students per 100 multifamily households. So this is another graphic to show year built by unit. This is on average. And then this is also a graph that's going to kind of show a distribution of your overall housing market and when it was built. So the blue bars are going to be the previous units from last year, and then the orange will be the units built that year. And then that bold will say how many units are built per year. So we can see that in 2010, 2019, only 310 units were built. 2000, 2009, 968, so we are decreasing. 1950 to 1959 saw the largest number of built units. And then the average year for all units was 1905. So for growth in your district, this is a map that's going to show geographically where those growth areas. We use green as current development, so are they currently pushing dirt? Are we going to see them coming online and filling occupancy within the next year? Yellow is for 5 years, so they may have the plans drawn, but they haven't really started developing yet, but we will assume that they're going to be done in 5 years. And then purple is 10 years. So overall, KCK saw 310 units built, and then most of this housing stock was built before 1960. Home value trends swing from east to west, with east being the most affordable and west the least affordable. We're seeing a yield rate of 21 students per 100 households for single-family households and 18 students per 100 households for multifamily households. The majority of this residential development will be concentrated on the western portion of the district. And then it's always important to monitor these effects of COVID-19 when it comes to economic and building activity. We have seen a lot of effects of this on this industry. So getting into our part 3, which is your projections. So this is your overall table to show your projections for the next 5 years. So overall enrollment has an annual increase and decrease, but it's going to overall be stable throughout 2026-27. The impact of COVID-19 in the economy is something that you need to monitor to make sure that we're keeping on track with these projections. But elementary, we're projecting to increase by 400 students, middle school to decrease by around 320 students, and a high school decrease by around or by nearly 60 students. So just some clarifications on that, or on these next tables. We kind of break it down by reside, attend, and reside and attend. So reside is where that student resides in relation to the attendance area. So in their address, what attendance area are they located? Attend is based on where they're actually attending. So they may live in one boundary, but they're attending a different school. So then we can break that up, and then how many reside and attend. So you can see those green, yellow, and purple numbers when I go to the next tables. So this is your first table, and we're going to break down by each elementary, middle, and high school. So in this slide, all schools are maintained within optimal capacity, so you'll see some growth, but everyone can be housed in their buildings as well. So then we see here that we were kind of tight in some areas in the past, but we're going to be moving forward with our projections, and we won't be over school capacity on these schools. On this one, so for New Chelsea Elementary is the first elementary school that's going to be over that building capacity in 2024-25, and then maybe moving forward, as well as Wellborn Elementary. For middle school, we saw Carl Bruce Middle School as moving forward that will have some capacity challenges. And then J.C. Harmon High School and Wyandotte High School, as well as some capacity challenges there. So overall, I know that was a lot of numbers thrown at you, but some main takeaways. Your elementary enrollment projected to increase. Middle school is going to decrease by a little. High school will decrease by a little. You have some capacity challenges that are forecasted for the future at New Chelsea and Wellborn Elementary, and then Carl Bruce Middle School, J.C. Harmon High School, and Wyandotte High School for your enrollment analysis. We always like to leave you with just like a couple considerations with this information. So always continue to review different things that I mentioned that would play a role in how these projections play out in the next 5 years. So COVID has had an impact on enrollment, and we'll have to see that continued recovery from the past 2 years. District and administration can further study or use this to study and add it to other projects. So if we use this to look at our boundaries and look at other just facilities and what we need to do in the future. Residential development is always a big trigger when looking at student enrollment, so keeping an eye on any new subdivisions or any new developments coming online that would help impact the student enrollment, as well as capacity challenges. So our district-wide capacity is less than 75% over the next 5 years, so that's going to be 13 schools that are under 70%, at least in those 3 years, and then those 2 elementary schools that I have previously mentioned that are over capacity. District-wide middle school is less than 80% over the next 5 years, with 3 schools under 70% in at least one of the years. And then district-wide high school capacity is less than 81% over the next 5 years, with 1 school under 70%. So this is also just some more capacity challenges to give you this information and discuss. our enrollment forecasting is based on this best known information at the time. So the analysis presented today is neutral, and we're here just to analyze your data and give it back to you. So I can stand for any questions, as well as questions on past presentations. I've also got Rob that he can answer as well.
Thank you very much. Would now open up for questions. Dr. Yeager?
So my question is, we have capacity issues this year, and we've talked about it quite in depth. So my question is next steps. Does our department work with you guys to make a recommendation for the new school year and the school board approves it? I mean, how fast can changes be made? Also, I didn't see the list of the schools because there's so much data. Because it lists 13 schools, 3 schools, 1 school, but I think it would help if we knew specifically what schools so that we could know how the numbers matched up. I think that would help me.
Yeah, for sure. We can, we have those tables too of the percentages, and we can give those, we can send those to you.
But the question about how fast can we?
So based off capacity, when they do theirs, they're looking at like student bodies with square footage. I don't know if we are at true capacity unless I missed it this year. When in some of our larger buildings, just how, we educate students in the spacing, there may be some challenges. That would be, if the board wanted us to move forward at, looking at boundary adjustments, I would say we would need to start now so that so families would be aware and know the impact, and we'll know the domino effect with transportation and other components as far as capacity as where the kids would actually go. We would work with RSP. They do, can, run programs to say if you shift this housing area to this is the domino effect, and sometimes it means shifting other kids, or, for example, if you look at like a Banneker where they have capacity, if you move kids over there, it may not have a domino effect, but that's where we would work with them.
Because my concern is it should be done as soon as possible. We did modify the boundaries, but by the time we implemented it, things had changed. So my concern is, like when we found out the overstaffing at Wyandotte, we said, hey, can you bring us back a plan to see how this can be modified? And I don't know if that's been updated yet, or if we were waiting for these numbers, or.
We were waiting for these numbers. The other thing that we can probably control internally, when she was talking about attendance for sites and permits and those things, we can control permits, and we can say that, for example, Carl B. Bruce, Wyandotte, New Chelsea, and Wellborn, no permits, and if there are, few exceptions. But if we're going to, if the board's advice is for us to move forward, there are some specific steps which she may be able to share. Typically, when you're doing boundary changes, what's your recommendation? If we were looking at next year, you can tell us what you typically recommend and what it would mean if that was a decision the board made for us to move forward, what that compressed timeline would look like.
Yeah, so we've already completed your enrollment analysis. So we always, when we start boundary analysis, we in the past, we pulled a committee together, so of parents and no board members or administration, but committee members to go through this information with us. And then when we're realigning, we set some boundary criteria. So if you're looking at, moving least amount of students as possible, that may be a criteria, or demographic considerations and fiscal considerations, all these kind of things where we set criteria with what we want, and then we use the 5-year projections to make sure that our boundary change is going to be at least within optimal capacity all 5 years. So making sure that we're not moving kids from a crowded building to another crowded building, and then we'll have to do another change in 2 years. So longevity is something that goes into this analysis. We set committee meetings, and then we may take, we kind of go with 2 concepts by the end of it, and then you guys set the timeline, so how many meetings you guys want, how much of a facilitation, as well as with the public. So doing a public input session or a survey, and then coming at the end for the board's final decision.
So a recommendation would need to be made to do that? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we would need clarity and those kind of things, if that's what the board, and I apologize, I'm looking back, if clarity on where we definitely have capacity issues, if I'm looking at the charts right, but you can tell me if I'm wrong, would be Wellborn,
Whittier, New Stanley.
Wellborn, this current year or going into next year, Colby Bruce, J.C. Harmon,
Chelsea.
Chelsea.
and New Chelsea,
And Wanda.
and Wyandotte.
So I want to make a motion that we start the process of looking at boundary changes for the upcoming school year of 2022, 2023. Greg, does that encompass what I'm supposed to motion?
So there's a motion to review boundary changes for the upcoming 2022-2023 school year.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Would you say the motion again, please?
The motion on the floor currently is for the district to review and look into boundary changes for the upcoming 2022-2023 school year.
I second that.
There's a motion and a second. Now open up for questions or discussion. Ms. Humphries?
I have a couple of requests as we're looking at the boundary changes, that we look at what is parent-friendly, because we have, for example, Grant Elementary currently feeds into Rosedale, which is totally on the other side of the city. Francis Willard feeds into Harmon in Argentine, where you've got the big problem of a highway, a river, and rail yards between where the kids live and where they attend school. So as we're looking at these boundary changes, I hope we look at the whole system to make sure we're doing what's best for our parents.
And I think that's very important, because providing that input to you all may not be aware of that. And so I think that's the importance of board and community saying, hey, this would be a highway, our children would cross the highway or whatever. And I think that would help with that discussion.
Yes, we'll definitely take all those factors in, as well as something we call like your feeder system. So if it's going to be, if your elementary is broken between two middle schools, trying to condense that, or doing other things like that transportation piece of trying to keep students going to the closest school and vice versa, with also weighing all the other challenges that why we're doing the boundary analysis. So this is always a give and take kind of process.
Because mileage-wise, closeness does not always mean it's really the closest because of the environmental barriers to some of our schools.
And I think it's necessary for us to be able to look at that, because one of the things that I would have really was impacted on is the comment that Dr. Nguyen made in relation to the state assessments. That's something that we may have to consider as to how and where we have our students within the buildings to make sure that the numbers balance evenly. So I think it's good for us to be able to review it before we make any major decisions.
Yes.
The only thing that I was going to say in conjunction with this, that it was still lingering out there, I would want us to be intentional about looking at what some of those possible recommendations were if we do a second bond where some schools were going to be possibly combined. If that's off the table, then that's not, but I do not want us to, if families have to move, like in a boundary change, and then we're like, oh, now we're going to combine and they have to move again, that's very disruptive. So I would want us to think long-term, if there's ever a second bond, if we were going to combine some elementaries primarily, or where, if Central, I'm just thinking about the things that were on the list, and the next location for Central, would that impact how things, so I think we would just have to think really big picture and be strategic about those families, if at all possible, wouldn't be impacted again, like that, those groups of students.
Yeah, I completely agree.
In that case, would we maybe not want to put how it's worded? It says for the 22-23 school year, maybe we want to just make it generic, look at the boundary changes, because we don't want to rush in to committing to having to change it now when we know we may have to change it again. Just a suggestion.
I can make a friendly amendment if Maxine is open to it.
For what?
What would your amendment be?
Friendly amendment to looking at the boundary changes for the school district, not putting on 22, 23.
Thank you.
But just look at the boundaries to make a decision.
The amended,
I would be in agreement.
the amended motion, as long as Ms. Drew would agree, it sounds like would be for the district to review the boundary analysis or begin boundary analysis for the school district. No school year attached to that, correct?
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say also, we just have a newly elected mayor in in Kansas City, Kansas, the county, who said, and one of the things he ran on, and people are hyped up about, is no new taxes. Now, I get everybody, yeah, we do need some other things in the bond, but take that in consideration along with COVID, because you looked at housing units, but we need to look at the income of people who live in this area, and can they afford those taxes? And before we ran on, no, it wouldn't increase your taxes. I don't know about that this time, and we have to keep that in mind. He's saying, I'm not going to increase your taxes, and we're saying we want to do this, 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 which may require that some taxes, I'm not saying raise them. Now, I'm a taxpayer. I don't want mine to go up. But yet, I want us to excel, but at the same time, I'm not willing to pay more taxes. And there's a lot of people out there who feel that way, so keep that in mind as well.
Dr. Nguyen?
All I just wanted to note was that we've already said we're going to start looking at potentially time changes. Now, we can multitask, but we need to keep in mind that all these things kind of mesh to each other. So I'm glad you changed your motion, because I would have opposed it for this upcoming school year. We cannot afford to make mistakes for our families. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen.
I think the main thing is we've heard Wyandotte students, we've heard New Chelsea students, and Carberry Bruce, year after year said we have too many students. We have too many students. So I think something needs to be done to help those schools get relief as soon as possible. Because we've added and added, but the reality, the data shows that those schools that were listed is at very high capacity. So I wanted to help give them relief of all those students. So that's what I say you guys should really consider next year as you have a new board member.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager. Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, and,
Paige?
okay, what we already paid for this, how much more is it going to cost to do this additional, because they're not doing it for free. I didn't hear you say that. And how much more are we paying? I'm not saying it's not needed. I just want to know what's the added cost. Because they're not doing, unless you know Dr. Stubblefield.
I know her, for sure. We have good hearts. So I know the initial contract, we'll go back and look what the costs are. We'll be transparent on that. But I think in our original contract, we had built in, because the assumption was, hey, we're going to need to do some additional boundary changes. So we never did that, right? COVID hit, and so everything kind of went on a pause. So we'll look to see what we have, and it goes back to what Jenna was saying. How many meetings do we need to have to be able to fully have a conversation, a dialogue with the community? What does that look like? What is that timeline? And so that's something we can definitely work with administration to figure out. A good
So
question.
what you just said is free, right?
No, I did not say free. On the record, did not say free.
Gotcha.
And on the record, Rob, we went to KU together, but Rob is not giving me any free boundary analysis in all the 3 districts that I've encountered him in, so.
So Dr. Stubblefield, from our last conversation, we have a copy of that contract?
Yes, it's the contract that you approved to bring here, and I can get with Lenore and Ralph to, if you don't have it in front of you, but we can be clear, we'll just make sure we're on the same page and say this will be the additional cost, or it's already included.
And you did provide us with that
Yes.
previous report that we hadn't gotten before?
Yes.
Correct.
Thank you. Other questions, discussion? Not, there's a motion and a second on the floor, an amended motion, I'm sorry, in a second. Ms. Downing, would you please do a roll call vote?
Can you read the motion one
Yes,
more time?
please. Ms. Downing, would you please read the motion to make sure I have it correct as well? I believe it's for the Board of Education to approve that the district do a boundary analysis for the district.
The district, yes, I have. I move the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education review the boundary analysis information for this school district.
Is that correct, Dr. Yeager and Ms. Drew? Yes. Okay.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you so much for the information and the report tonight.
Great, thank you. We look forward to this dialogue and this journey.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you. Before we jump into Ms. Humphries?
Could we have maybe a 7-minute break?
Yes, I was just going to say, let's take a quick recess while we transition to our next agenda item. So we'll recess now at 6:16 for 10 minutes. Thank you. if we can get folks to come back together, we will come back and continue with our agenda. Thank you for giving us a quick 10-minute stretch. Next up on our agenda as we continue is under agenda item 9B, our ESSER 2 update and ESSER 3 conversation. And I believe Tracy Kaiser is here who will help facilitate and lead us through that conversation. So thank you, Ms. Kaiser.
Yes, good evening again. I did give you a printed handout that is easier to read than that PDF. It's got a lot of information on it. So just to give you a brief update on the status of our ESSER 2 funds, on the handout, we do have our expenditures, the link to our district's strategic theme, the KISA alignment, and then what was submitted on the first application. The applications do have to go to KSDE for approval and then the State Board of Education. So for the first application of ESSER $2, we submitted $24.5 million, and that was approved. Our second application was for the remaining $12.1 million, and that is now pending. It should be going to the State Board of Education this month. So I just wanted to give you an update of what was approved, what we've expended so far, and what we still have to spend out of the first application, and then what's pending with the second. The ESSER 2 funds did not require stakeholder input, but we did have a committee that got together, had IIOs, principal input and everything, and got their information. And this was also shared at the principal meeting the other day. So going forward, we have the ESSER 3 funds, which are $82.5 million. And with that, that we are required to have stakeholder input. So we have the survey information from Dr. Stubblefield's listening and learning tours. And then also a survey went out this past week to district administrators, principals. And so you can kind of see the common themes there. So going forward, just need input further on what you guys would like to see us doing with the ESSER $3. Dr. Stubblefield and Dr. Campbell have a lot of really strong goals that we would like to get to. And so from the educational side of it, I would let them answer any questions you might have.
So my question is, we put more officers in the classroom. However, things that are alternative to provide a wraparound approach, such as like meditation, intervention measures, that we have more coaches in place, like if we know an incident's gonna happen, to have them meet and things like that. Is that what you're planning to do when you say intervention measures? That's under the ESSER 3 listening and learning tour?
Yes, so some of the preliminary information and some steps that we have taken is to get feedback from multiple stakeholder groups in that social emotional learning. There was investment in it in ESSER 2. And in ESSER 3, we are looking to expand that. We have engaged community partners and talked to building principals. For example, we didn't use ESSER dollars, I don't believe, but we were able to train Harmon's entire staff around restorative practices, and we're looking at, not getting rid of the dean role, but thinking about how do you have a restorative coordinator to make sure those circles and those kind of things and social workers are available for students. And then long-term, when those things are put in place, what are the things that we need short-term, and what are the things that we need to sustain, and what kind of data will we be collecting around it, and are they tied to approved programming that either our federal dollars or our at-risk dollars can be shifted to sustain whatever we are kicking off. We have scheduled all of our high schools and Carl B. Bruce to all receive restorative practice training in August before kids come back next year. And we did meet with one of our, we met with several community partners, but specifically we already have a partnership with Thrive, who does some academic tutoring, some social emotional learning, and looking at expanding that, and have other community partners who have reached out to us. And one of the things that I'm hoping that we'll gain after the environmental scan or scan from KU is some specifics around, what are those things that need to be in Tier 1 for our students, but setting aside dollars to talk about self-regulation, de-escalation, and how do we build long-term partnerships with some of our mental health facilities and those kind of things. But we haven't gotten specific because we are still collecting data, but there are some things that are in there. And if Lisa Garcia Stewart is on, she may be able to talk specific. We did start Second Step and expanding that with the ESSER $2, but she may have some more specifics around that if she is still listening. Oh, there she is. Hi, Lisa.
I'm still here. Yes, good evening. Yes, we were able with SR2 funds to expand our social emotional learning curriculum so that we are providing that Tier 1 support kindergarten through 12th grade with the Second Step. There is a kit for every classroom teacher. I came and shared that information, and with the board approval was able to make sure that every teacher had the curriculum for their classroom and deliver that each and every week during family advocacy. And we also expanded the purchase of Mindful Momentum, which will begin in January for our high schools. In the first semester prior in preparation for the training, at no cost, we use Overcoming Obstacles so that we could have social emotional curriculum kindergarten through 12th grade.
And so I think in light of the recent issues, parents have been the focus. So if we're working on the child during the school day, having restorative approach, where does that parent come in? Because there was a study that the board was given probably about 2 years ago that said the same students that are being suspended in grades 4, 5, 6, et cetera, it's the same student repeatedly as they move through. So at what step does the parent get training, involvement if they need resources? Because if a child is having problems, not all the time, but it could be reflection of something going on in the home. So when do we get that parent to help them know the processes and get them some help?
I'd like to be able to add to that, if I may, Dr. Stubblefield.
Yes.
So we, with our partnership and our initiative, with our Trauma and Sensitive and Resilient Schools initiative with Brittany Telly that leads that work on my team, we also partner with Wind Out Inc. that has Alive and Thrive with Chandra Green. And we provide many opportunities throughout the community to provide that trauma-informed training for our community partners, for our parents, and for any stakeholders in our community so we can really wrap around the whole child, the whole family approach. And they have been an amazing partnership with Alive and Thrive, which is different than Thrive, with Jamela Watson-Thompson. And this is led by our health outcomes with our community health improvement plan through the community. And that work helps us to really layer the support that we're building at the school, but also in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Lopez, I've said this before, and I've gotten an answer. They said they're working on it, but I want to say it out loud. We got this money. We said we were going to do enrichment, some things to help these kids. They told us what they wanted, and I was told we're going to get going on this in January. I hope we do. That we need to offer them coding, STEM, playing chess. If I just want to jump up and down in the gym, give me an opportunity. We don't have a lot in the county for these kids to do. Some of them can't afford it. And unless your parents have the income, you're able to do some things. But we have some money. It's supposed to be for the kids. We need to make sure that we provide them some opportunities and some activity to do at school. The school is a place of learning. We can learn in different ways. We're in the classroom, we're after school, we're gonna teach you how to play chess, we can have ballet, we can learn to play the guitar, maybe some non-traditional instruments to get them involved in music, but we gotta do something, because they're involved in some other activities that's not productive, and maybe we can help somebody. We may not be able to save them all, but we can save somebody. That we make sure that some of that goes to them. And then in regard to the surveys, is there another way to send a survey out? Because we didn't get as many people coming to the talk with the superintendent. So I'm hoping that there's some that we can put out online or something, because maybe they had to work. We got people working 2 and 3 jobs. And it's not that they don't care, they just couldn't take off. So is there a way to get their input as well?
Yeah, we did have it online and shared it out with our school sites and others, but we definitely can continue to get feedback. The thing of the broad categories, I think, were consistent even with the small sample groups that we have, and that there are things, and there have been community members with community organizations that have come and said they want to partner with us, and there are dollars that's set aside for that, because a lot of the things that you're describing, we would have to like strategically work with community partners, because either they have those things, and this is, like you said, a small window where we would be able to provide compensation for it, but it would not be long-term, and we've been very clear about that, like those things are not built in our budget, but there may be some other opportunities around it, and clear about making the connection to like targeted tutoring, academic outcomes, or social emotional learning. So we are working to have a way or a framework so that we can collect data on the kids who are attending and how they're performing, or where their behavior assessments are, I may be using the wrong term, Lisa, SRS data is what I'm used to calling like their social emotional, and so that we can track all of those things and have the data into the end to present to the board and for the public as we're tracking those students.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen?
Thank you, and I have a couple of questions, please. So I'm looking at both of the handouts, the last page of the one that has column essentially H through H. Is the 6 million the amount that remains to be allocated?
The 6 million, we did not have enough in ESSER 2 to, so the first 2 sections take up all the ESSER 2, the 36.7 million. And then if we want to continue to sustain those programs, for example, summer school, we still have 2 million for 3 years from now that we don't have enough money in ESSER 2 to spend. So the 6.4 would be kind of our first start if we want to continue these programs on what we would submit for our ESSER 3 application.
Okay. Then on the second sheet, I guess it'd be a line that has column J through K, number 17. When it talks about intervention software, what is that? Is that the AVID? That's not intervention software.
Looks like that does include AVID.
But what is intervention software?
Because Avid, there may have been some online things that, because we haven't started the Avid component, so there may be some online stuff, but it would, that's not, like it's intervention software, Avid, and virtual school, so those are three.
3 separate things, right.
So the intervention software, honestly, if it's, is this referring to ESSER 2, or is this the same where people would, oh.
ESSER 2.
If it's referring to ESSER 2, I am thinking it may be the, and I can't speak to it because it was exactly to it, but I'm thinking there was some math and reading software that when the students were primarily online and coming back that was used at that time, and we still probably have the licenses and teachers are probably still utilizing it right now. I don't know the exact title. I'm looking at Dr. Campbell, but I don't see any of her team or some of the others who may have been here last year that are online, if you can jump in.
I can.
Okay, thank you.
The intervention software was identified as another possibility of what we could use the ESSER funds for to support students with those achievement gaps. Currently, we are looking at Imagine Learning, which is an intervention software for literacy instruction. We also are looking at the possibility of doing some in-person tutoring, so some of those funds may need to be adjusted just to allow us to do that project as well.
So this chart is generic?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, generic to the extent to give us some flexibility as like broader categories where we can either do, like, remember we have, I don't know exactly how many students are virtual that would need an online intervention software. And then I know that Dr. Campbell has been in communication with 2 in-person tutoring companies that work with school district, and they come in during the school day. So it's a balance of addressing those students that we know are still virtual online and targeted tutoring and opportunities for them, and then the targeted tutoring and support for our students who are live.
But when you make application, you cannot be generic, correct? You
No,
must
they
be-
accepted
They
this in our
accepted
application
just
to
that?
give you some flexibility for ESSER 2, yeah.
Okay. And why would are we looking to that same block, are we looking to expand numbers of students to participate in virtual school in Greenbush? Is that what that says?
At the time, it specifically was the number of students who needed to attend Greenbush. We're not necessarily looking to expand. I don't know how many students that will want to continue, but a conversation pre-COVID, pre-pandemic, my understanding was there is a segment of our population that we probably, this says Greenbush, but I'm just being transparent. We were looking at what does a virtual opportunity or a mixed opportunity look like for our students that we develop in-house as well. But this specifically was for the Greenbush contract, but we've also talked about what that looks like to have an ongoing possible option for some of our students, similar to some of our surrounding districts, for students who that may be their best learning modality.
So this has already been submitted?
This ESSER 2 has already been
Both of these have just already been submitted. You're just giving us
submitted and basically approved. We're waiting on the final approval, where our discussion, where we want to be clear on, we have the surveys of those who could, was to make sure if there are priorities for the board as we start to complete the allocation for the ESSER $3, which is about $82 million, that we have the priorities of the board, either broadly or specifically, that we can make sure that we are including in it. And so, for example, when Dr. Yeager specifically talked about SEL and regulation and meditation and yoga, so we will look at things under that umbrella with community partners, or either training that we can provide for our teachers in that area of SEL. So if there are specific things, and like Ms. Page shared, she wants to see more non-traditional clubs and opportunities or activities for our students, either after school, before school, or during the school day, with community partners that can get them connected, engaged. So we do have a line in ESSER 2, which if we need to expand in ESSER 3, around community partnerships for SEL and academic support, that broadly the state has. They give you some flexibility, but it is community partnerships specifically to look at that. And all of our internally decision-making, what I've charged the team with is all of this we need to look at and align with ultimately by 2031, so all of our students, we can start to get them on track and build in sustainability for them to graduate with a Diploma Plus. So we're looking at it from that lens, but want to make sure that we get your direct input around things that we should be considering.
Okay, so we don't have actually a working document to give you input for ESSER 3 allocation. I mean, do you call this application it, or I'm not looking at the right place?
We haven't started the application. This was like the discussion. The survey, on the survey that was completed, there was an opportunity either to pick something or type something, but we can loop back around and say, here's what the broad survey, the categories, and let you add to that. That is definitely something that we can do as a next step.
I mean,
Yeah.
some of us have the list of eligible uses, although are they state board expanding the eligible uses, or the feds for ESSER 3?
I think they made an additional 2.
Okay,
ESSER 3.
so that would give us the guidelines.
Yes.
You already have what you said you discussed going to Diploma Plus, but we don't have in my opinion, a working document to give you input. This is already gone. This is already accepted. So
Yeah.
this is just for discussion purposes, actually, because it's already gone. One last question, then I'll leave this alone. All this trauma training, do we have any assessment of other than, and I don't want to say what would be the ultimate, is that the kids are not hospitalized, I'll use that phrase.
Lisa, if you are still on, I know there are assessments that you can do. I know that there are ways that you can collect the data just from but I'm not sure what we use here.
I remember us getting something of how many visits, how many conferences, but I guess the generic question is it working? Is it succeeding? We're using a lot of serious time, and it's a serious issue, and it's a serious concern. But are we closing that loop? Do we know?
Yeah. Is Lisa still on?
I'm sorry, I was just waiting, and Dr. Moon, please let me know if I'm answering this question. I did have Brittany come and present to the board. Brittany Telly is the coordinator that leads the work for the Trauma Sensitive and Resilient Schools Initiative. And so she shared with the board at that time.
That was a couple of years ago, wasn't it, Lisa?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It's been a while. So if it pleases the board, I would love for her to be able to return to share with you where we are in terms of the cohorts that we have provided the training for staff. And she does evaluate the program. In fact, she is speaking to the funder of our grant in January to speak about our assessment and our progress. And we have made strides, but certainly during this time of the pandemic and the community violence, certainly there's still much work to be done. And Brittany's spending a lot of time supporting the schools and the behavioral teams to build capacity. And so I can certainly work with Dr. Stubblefield to have her come back and share the progress, the evaluation, and the status of where we are with the staff being trained and the onboarding of new staff during that training when staff are hired, and how we continue to support our staff throughout the school year and our students as well.
Because the mental health aspect may be considered as there's discussion to have it as a weight instead of a pilot.
Yeah.
So it's very important.
So, and I would just say, student services scheduled to provide an update to the board at the January 25th board meeting. So it was on our calendar of upcoming meetings. Yeah.
My last question or concern is, we know that there's a teacher shortage, and it was recommended before for parents to be trained as teachers or employees to be trained as teachers. Has that been officially in place for our district? For example, if food service staff or janitor wanted to become a teacher, is there a pathway for them? Or if a parent says, hey, I want to be a student aide or para, et cetera, is there a path for it? Because right now I don't see any advertisement for it or any program. But I think that's really important, because if they have students, if parents are taught and get their degree, they're more likely to stay here and work in our district.
Yeah. So one thing that we presented at a previous board meeting, and we're finalizing the MOU, and it'll be on the January 11th meeting, was the partnership with the Kansas City Teach Residency. So that It's an opportunity just for, people within our community to do it. We also do have the para pathways and those kind of things. I do think we can do a much better job of, our HR department, they do advertise things, but I think we can be more intentional about going to where our parents and community members are, and being clear on the jobs and what they entail and how much they pay. We did go to a couple of events this fall. They did have a fair where, I think it was at Carl Bruce, where they had, like, if you're going to be a bus driver, this is what's required, and they met. So we can definitely do more things like that, but we also can definitely, with the community partners that are coming to us that maybe have more access to our families, go to where our families are to talk them through on how they can become employed within our district.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I just thought, and do we use Latino radio stations and other radio stations?
For job advertisement, yeah, I know we've been on El Centro and some radio stations. Recently, I don't know the last time we went, but I know at the beginning of the school year, there was a representative from HR and Mr. Linkus who did some stuff with El Centro and some other stations, and they were advertising jobs and the start of the
So then we use African-American radio stations?
I personally have been on KPRS. I don't know, I haven't been on any other
Well,
station.
not you as a
Yeah.
feature, but I'm talking ongoing advertisement. Same thing, again,
Yeah, and
the bus
honestly-
drivers, we're not,
Yeah. I don't.
it doesn't appear that we are visible.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah. And I think that's definitely an area of growth and consistency that we can be we have been on there promoting things, but we definitely probably can explore like the cost of running ads and those kind of things with more intentionality around our job openings and things like that. Yeah.
And Mr. Lopez, I see this for ESSER 2, we have summer school incentive payments for the staff. Is it possible to do it for the students? That if you complete summer school and you participate, maybe you get a ticket to go to Worlds of Fun or something, just to we all need incentives. Adults want it, kids want it. Is that a possibility? To say that if you go in and you improve your scores and you do something to get them to buy into it? Just asking.
Honestly, I don't know. We could ask and see if it's accepted, because the worst thing that could happen could be no. Yeah. I don't know.
And I think, I appreciate that we were able to kind of fill in the survey that was sent out to prioritize based on the list. And, as you said, Dr. Stubblefield, talking about thinking long-term with the Diploma Plus and how we're able to meet that goal of by 2031. I think it was Randy Watson, Dr. Watson, who was here at the district last year, a year and a half ago, and talked about, this is an influx of money that likely we won't ever see again. And so how can we be innovative and creative? Ms. Page talking about incentives or other ways, but being creative about how we're able to use these dollars to both meet the urgent needs that our students and staff in our district has, but also keeping an eye on that long-term and the important pieces that we want to achieve, such as that goal for Diploma Plus. So, as staff is, to Dr. Wynn's point, as we're creating, what does this look like, and maybe being able to give some feedback on what we're planning to use funds. I'd continue to encourage us, and I think you all are, thinking about this creatively and innovatively about how to do that, both meeting the urgent need with keeping an eye on those important long-term outcomes that we want to achieve. So, just thinking about how best to use those $80+ million to support our students in the classroom, outside of the classroom, with mental health and social, emotional, and other. And so I appreciate, the creative ways of thinking on how to do that, but also thinking about, meeting some of those urgent needs. So I guess, that's what tonight was really for, is really to kind of help give some input and discussion. And I know this won't be the only time that we'll have that opportunity, it sounds like.
So what I will do to follow up in working with Tracy and our team is to create a working document with, here are the approved things, here are the big things that our feedback is on, and then allowing you to put direct input in that. My goal will be able to get that to you before break, so that when we return for break, our hope is to get our application in to KSDE by the end of January at the latest, so that we will have an idea of what they're approving or not approving. We are, and I don't know, in ESSER 3, we are looking at, and we'll make sure we include that on there. There is a finite way, given some of our schools that have mobiles, that there are some strict procedures, but we are trying to follow them to address some of the spacing issues and some of the issues that have come up before that with COVID that may be causing some challenges for our students, just given the age of it. The challenge with that is the money has to be, whatever projects, if they are approved, have to be completed by September of 2024. So Dr. Turan and his team have been looking at that specifically at some of our schools that have mobile units. So, and we've been getting guidance from KSDE and some others around that, but there are some specific small projects like that that we can include. So we'll try to get that to you before break, so you'll have time to give feedback, so we can bring it back before we submit the final application.
I think that's a great next step and plan, and to think about some of those mobile units and how we might be able to include that in here. I know we survey all the time, but is there a way maybe, and I'm just thinking out loud, to get student input on, for the board, for us to hear what they feel might be, how best to use some of these dollars as well?
So honestly, Edwin and myself and our Thought Exchange partner, we are planning to have a Thought Exchange and a student listening and learning tour. We were planning like in January. We were trying to finalize some dates to do an option in virtually, and if we possibly can figure out a way to do some in person on site, maybe during FA time at specifically at our high schools, but we were trying to finalize some dates around that to get some feedback on them just about their school experience and that kind of thing.
That's awesome. Thank you. Any other questions or further discussion on this? Again, board, please, if you have other thoughts or questions, please email those to us as well. All right. Thank you, Tracy.
Thank you.
So next on our agenda is up for third read our policies that we've reviewed a couple of times already. So Mr. Goheen, I don't know if there's anything you want to say regarding these policies. I do have one suggested change to a policy, but open to hearing how you want to receive that.
Yeah, so this is the third read. Obviously, if anybody's got any changes or suggested changes to the policies, we could still make them before they're adopted, but typically this is the last read to make that change. And I think you'd indicated you found a typo in one of the policies. I'm not sure what that was.
Yes, just a typographical error on policy FC under the third paragraph, renaming facilities. The last sentence says the committee shall provide a written recommendation to the board briefly stating, it's supposed to say why, there's just an extra E in there. So if we could just take out that extra E, then that would be fine.
So if there's other changes, we could either do them all at once or with that change, or if you want to break it out, you can break it out.
I would like to move that we approve the suggested changes for the third read all at once.
With the correction that Mr.
With the correction from Mr. Lopez.
There's a motion and a second. Do you have any other questions or discussion? Not Ms. Downing, roll call vote, please.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up is our executive session. I would entertain a motion for the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education to recess to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of parties involved under coma, with Dr. Stubblefield and Mr. Goheen invited to be present, going in at 7:03 for 15 minutes, coming back at 7:18.
So moved.
Second.
Been seconded. Ms. Downing?
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Thank you.
And staff, you're free to go. If there's no action after this.
Thank you, staff.
Yep.
Motion to return to open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Downing?
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager,
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great, thank you. We're back in open session. I meant to say this earlier, but if students or staff are still watching, best of luck on your finals and as you finish up the semester. And thank you for all the hard work you all have been putting in. Dr. Stubblefield and your team, please thank your team on behalf of the board for all you're doing. And happy holidays to everybody if we don't see you before the holiday break. So with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.